Hi, thanks for watching my channel today. My name's Sarah and my channel is called Your Tree Shelf. Today I'm doing like Friday reads, but it's not Friday, it's Saturday as I'm filming because I've been really bad at getting them up on a Friday. I didn't even do a video last week because it was kind of just doing stuff. So this will probably go up Saturday or Sunday, but it's a Friday reads format. I'm going to start by telling you about what I've been up to, what books I've read, a couple of books I've hauled, and also what I'm planning on doing next reading wise. So the weather's really turned now. It's really autumnal, which is really nice because I have been candles on, like putting on like YouTube backgrounds on the TV while I'm reading. I've been doing some cooking. Well, I always cook, but I've just been cooking more like heartwarming kind of hearty, that's what I mean, hearty kind of recipes. I made like a really delicious apple cake by the Domestic Goddess, who's a really great vegan cook. And I've also really got back into knitting. So I've always been someone, I've been able to knit since I was about like 8, something like that. And I had like big gaps where I haven't knitted, and then I've had like times where I've knitted loads, like when the kids were babies or before I had them. I was like knitting a lot of baby clothes, and I've always knitted like scarves and stuff like that. And I finished a cowl. I don't know if we use the word cowl in the UK, but that's what it's called. We maybe use the word snood, maybe. But it's like I'll put a picture, but it's like that shape, kind of scarf thing, but it's all joined in a loop. So I finished that, and then I found this channel, and she's a vegan knitter. And so if you're vegan, you don't use wool or animal fibers to knit with. You use things like acrylic, cotton, bamboo, those kind of things to knit with. And she is so nice and helpful. And she also adapts patterns or adapts the yarns used in patterns to be vegan. So I've been obsessed with watching her channel and other kind of knitting stuff. And now I'm going to attempt my first jumper. So yeah, so that's really exciting. So I've been doing a lot of knitting, which means I can listen to audiobooks depending on what I'm making. Because if it's a complicated pattern, I'll have to fully concentrate on what I'm doing. But then I can't obviously hold a book and read while I'm knitting. So yeah, I've just been like doing different hobbies as well as the things that I normally do. I've been making some bookmarks. I've been doing like watercolors and laminating them, making them into bookmarks. So yeah, I've been doing all the kind of craft stuff, which I love. And but I have managed to read some books, but that's really why I didn't film a Friday reads last week, because I was kind of in the middle of lots of things and hadn't really finished. So the first book that I want to tell you about that I finished is a book that I haven't mentioned last time because I was reading it, but I've finished it now. So this book is The Parker Inheritance by Varian Johnson, which is a middle grade book. I think middle grade / YA, to be honest. I think it's probably more YA, but with a bit of a more middle grade cover. And this was a gift from Karen at Raving Reader a couple of years ago. This was on my TBR spin list, and it was my TBR pick for the month, TBR spin pick for August. So this is about Candice and Brandon. Candice has just moved to a new area. She's moved to her grandma's house because her parents have split up with her mum, and she finds a letter in her grandma's things about a mystery that hasn't been solved, and if it can be solved, then the town and the family can win this money. And it's basically what's happened is it was a racial injustice which was happened in about this 1960s, might have been 50s, and Candice's grandmother was trying to follow what happened, investigate this kind of mystery, and she didn't manage it, and she was not taken seriously because she didn't manage it. And so she's kind of passed it on to Candice, who investigates with Brandon, this guy that she meets who lives opposite her. So it covers themes of racial injustice, of violence against Black people, and it also is like the story of Candice. It's not a romance. There's no romance between Candice and Brandon. They're friends, but Brandon is having like there's kind of themes of queerness for Brandon, but they're not kind of fully explored because I think he's a bit unsure of his sexuality himself. And yeah, so it's a really good book. I gave this one, I think, 4 stars. And I'm also going to tell you for each book what hrcyed prompts I'm going to use it for. So if you're new here, hrcyed is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. I mention hrcyed on every video recently in the last few months because I update my boards as I go. So for this one, I'm just going to refer to my list because I don't want to get it wrong. For this one, I am using a V for the A to Z challenge for Varian Johnson as being the author. And I'm also going to use it for the rainbow challenge, which is where you have to have a book of all the colours of the rainbow on the front covers. So I'm going to use this one as red. And that takes me up to 3 out of 10 on the rainbow challenge prompts. I then read a book for Shorty September, which was a Fredrik Backman book, trying to get the title right. And every morning the way home gets longer and longer. Nice catchy title. So this was a really short book, under, I think, around 100 pages, maybe slightly less. And this is a story of a young boy and his grandfather. His grandfather has dementia. His wife has died before him, and he's starting to forget his family and his memories. And it's kind of this metaphorical place. He sits with his grandson and they talk about memories, and they talk about him losing his memory and about how that feels for him and how it feels for his grandson. And also a little bit about the relationship between the granddad and his son and the grandson and his dad. It's really heartwarming and touching, and it's really beautifully done. But what I would say is, now that I read it a couple of weeks ago, it's really faded from my memory, and that was not a deliberate pun, seeing as I was reading a book about dementia, but it hasn't really stayed with me. I think the concept and the importance of it was good, but I felt that it hasn't lasted with me and left an indelible impression. I did give it, I think I gave it a 4, but now I say maybe, it's hard because at the time it was worth a 4 star. It's just sometimes books stay with you and sometimes they don't. So for this one, I used it towards my 7-day challenge. So that is to read 3 books in 7 days. So the original prompt, I think, was to read 3 books in 24 hours. And I just thought, I know that I can't do that. So I'm going to change it to 7 days. So this was book 2 for the 7-day challenge. I'm going to use this one again for the alphabet challenge because that one has the most squares, and it's kind of easy to fill those ones in. I don't think this would actually apply for any other prompts, so I'm going to use this as F for Fredrik Backman. Then I read Foster by Claire Keegan, which I also read for Shorty September. So I've previously read Small Things Like These, which I really liked by her. So Foster was available on audio from the library, and so I listened to it and really enjoyed it. It's an Irish book. She's an Irish author, and I think we all probably have either read Claire Keegan before or know of her. And she writes very short books, and she really doesn't waste any words in her books. Everything is carefully placed and carefully considered. This is about a young girl whose mum is having another baby. I think she's got several younger children, and she sends her oldest daughter away to stay with friends while she's pregnant and having the baby. And the dad, he seems like quite kind of non-communicative, kind of angry. She doesn't seem very happy at her home. And when she goes to stay with this couple, she is much happier. She gets to do things. They love her, they care for her. She finds out a bit about their story, and that's quite heartbreaking. And they're just a lovely couple who really nourish her, and she grows and develops with them. And then I don't really want to say what happens after that, but it's one of those stories where you're kind of just dropped into the middle of this family's life, both the families' lives, and you feel like you know them quite quickly. You get a real sense of what's going on, of the place, of everything that's going on in their lives and their community, even though Claire Keegan hasn't spent a lot of time building those things and telling you. It's just the way that she has with words, the kind of magistry that she has with the words. And I feel like she does an incredible job at that. I thought this was a great story, which I gave 4.5 stars. And for this is the last one that I used for the 7-day challenge, which means finally, I can complete another square. So on my board, I can now say I've done 3 out of 3 for the 7-day challenge, and I can change the colour of my square so that I can see that it's complete. So that's really good, because whilst I'm working my way through a lot of squares, the squares are all staying the colour of incomplete. So that's really good news. And then I'm going to use this for... Okay, so I just realised I just made a mistake. So for the previous book, the Fredrik Backman book, I am going to use E for the alphabet challenge for every morning. And then for Foster, I'm going to use F. That's what I'd planned to do. And I don't know why I just cocked that up when I was explaining. And the first 2 rows of the alphabet are complete, which is nice. Visually, that looks quite nice. So the next book that I finished was a library book, and this was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. So this book has had a lot of hype. This Dream Harbour series, of which this is book number 1, has had a lot of hype. And I've said a couple of times recently that I'm not really a cozy book person until recently, where I'm just craving the coziness. This is a cozy small town romance set in what's supposed to be a bit like Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. Obviously, the author's pen name is supposed to attract Gilmore Girls fans. Anyone who doesn't watch Gilmore Girls, Lorelai Gilmore is one of the main characters, and this is written by Laurie Gilmore. This is following a woman called Jeannie who has been gifted her aunt's cafe, and she's been working in the city as a personal assistant, and she found her boss dead across his desk one day, not in suspicious circumstances. And she decided to reevaluate her life and her priorities, and she moved to this town. She took over the bakery, and she meets fairly quickly a guy who is a local farmer called Logan. He's kind of the plaid shirt, good looking, big guy that you'd expect in a kind of small town romance. He lives with his grandparents and like on their farm, and Logan and Jeannie have this kind of instant attraction to each other. He was previously dumped very publicly by his last girlfriend, so he's kind of still got worries about settling down with someone. She's got worries about whether it'll all work out, and if it doesn't, will it be really awkward, because they live in a small town and she runs a business that everyone goes to. But there's so much like autumnal charm and all of the kind of small town romance tropes that you'd expect. But I just really enjoyed this book. It was like exactly what I needed. It was cozy, it was fun, it was light-hearted, there was some spice in there, and it was just like exactly kind of what I was in the mood to read at that time. And so I did actually give this 4.25 stars, because I really liked it. And I know that it's not like the most literary brilliance in the world, but it doesn't matter. What matters is how much I enjoyed it, and I did really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the Dream Harbour books. And so for this one, I use this for the seasonal challenge, because you have to read a book set in each season in that season. So this was the perfect book for autumn. So I'm using this for the autumn square of the season challenge, taking me to 2 out of 4 squares for that one. And I'm also using it for by the years, which is where I have to read a book from each year over the last decade. This one was released in 2023, and so I've now read 3 out of 10 for the by the years square. And then finally, the last book that I finished this week, which was also an audiobook from the library, was Small Worlds by Caleb Azumah Nelson. And this book absolutely blew me away. I think it's a definite contender for my favourite book of the year. It's my second book that I read by Caleb Azumah Nelson. So I read Open Water, and that made my best books of the year, either last year or the year before. I think probably the year before. And I had the honour of meeting him at a book event in 2023 when he just released Small Worlds, and he was so nice, really lovely. And this book is so incredible. So it's about a young man called Stephen whose parents are Ghanaian. He's grown up in London. He talks about all these small worlds that exist for each person's life. So he's got the small world of like his family and his friends, and he has a real sense of community. He's in Peckham, and there's a real sense of community sort of where he lives. But like for instance, his auntie has a shop that sells food from Ghana, and it's a real kind of connection to home for the local people who live there. And shops like hers are getting closed down because of gentrification of the areas, and they're losing bits of their world. So that's one thing. There's also Stephen's relationship with his dad is a huge part of this, and the difficulties because his dad is a person who doesn't really know how to express himself and his feelings. So that's quite a big part. And then also Stephen's love for his friends and his best friend, who's a girl called Dell. But there's also this absolute passion for music, which is throughout the book. And Stephen talks about how when it's really difficult to know how you feel about something, or when you're experiencing stuff which is really traumatic and difficult to cope with, music is always there, and dancing is a way. Dancing to your favourite music is always like a way to lift you and for you to connect with other people without needing words. He also plays the trumpet in a jazz band as well, and music is just like everything to him. And so he's talking about like his world of music as well. And this is set over 3 different summers, so it will be the summer. You only follow him for the summer of each year. Part of the book is set in Ghana. And how Caleb Azumah Nelson writes is like he's writing poetry in book form. He writes his style is really unique, so beautiful and so moving, and I don't have the vocabulary to put it into words how incredible he is at writing. I think he's definitely one of the most talented writers we have in the UK. And he reads the audiobook, and he reads it almost as like it's a epic poem. He reads it in the perfect way. I just can't, as you can tell, because I'm just tripping over my words now. This was absolutely a 5-star read for me. Please, if you like literary fiction, read Caleb Azumah Nelson, because he's so good. For my squares, I'm using this for the country square because some of the book is set in Ghana, and Caleb Azumah Nelson is British Ghanaian. So I am using Ghana as one of my countries, and I am therefore up to 4 out of 5 countries. So I'm nearly finished on this square. I'm also going to use this one again for the alphabet challenge, and for the letter N for Nelson in his surname. So that's all of the things that I read so far. That I've been talking for a long time. There's not so much to come. So haul wise, the first thing I hauled was a bit of a surprise. It's behind me. Hold on. Right, it is this absolute mammoth 1,000 page long fantasy book called Alchemised. So I was, as part of the hrcyed new releases box, which I will put up on screen, you have to read a book that was released in each month of the year within 60 days of the release date. It looks like I haven't read a book for ages from that, but the book I'm using for August will be Boudica's Daughter, which was only released at the end of August. We'll have to read it by the end of this month. But each month I do a lot of research into what's coming out, so I know what to pick for my new release, because I don't usually read a lot of new releases. I kept seeing this book everywhere, and when I looked into it, so this was originally, the author SenLinYu wrote a book called Manacled, which was Draco Hermione fan fiction. And apparently it went insane in popularity. Like, I never read it, and I've never really I don't think I've ever read fan fiction before. And then it got picked up by a traditional publisher, but all links with Harry Potter needed to cease, obviously, because it was being traditionally published. And so this is not about Draco and Hermione. The author had to completely redo the whole thing, but I think she changed quite a lot as well. So I'm not buying it for that reason, but everyone's going crazy for this book, and I love a chunky book. I know this is probably the biggest book I own now. Their cover really draws me in. It's very dark, and I think it's basically a story of the bad guys won, and this girl is taken prisoner by them. And I don't really know much else. I'll read that there's a few sentences on the back. So it says, "What is it you think you're protecting in that brain of yours? The war is over. Holdfast is dead. the eternal flame extinguished. There's no one left for you to save. That's all it says on the back. And I will kind of want to go in blind without getting loads of reviews from lots of people, but I just, yeah, I'm really excited to read this. I could use it as my September new release. Don't know, because I've got a lot on at the minute. We'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to buy this anyway. So I got this. That's one thing I bought. And let me know if you've read it and what you think. And I'm going to balance it over there. It's too heavy to keep holding. The other things that I have bought. So I did buy a couple of Kindle deals. One was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, which is the second book in the Emily Wilde Encyclopedia of Fairies series, or just the Emily Wilde series. I haven't read book 1 yet, but I know I'm going to like book 1. And so when I saw book 2 was on a 99p deal, I thought, well, I may as well get that. Not a massive risk paying 99p. So I'm not obviously going to read what it's about because I haven't read book 1 yet. That was one thing that I bought. And then the second thing was The Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. So I've seen the Brothers Gwyn talk about this quite a lot. But I also have discovered a new channel, which I will link, I'll put a picture of here, called Books, Beverages and Besties. I really like their channel. And they have recently read The Empire of the Vampire, and they really raved about it, and they really made me want to read it. And so that was also on a 99p deal, so a perfect time to get it. So this is a vampire story, obviously. It's 27 years since it's last been daylight, so it's just been like a permanent night. Vampires are able to walk freely without fear, and they don't have to hide away. And humans only exist in like a few scattered places, and the vampires are very much like the dominant force. There's a guy called Gabriel de Leon, who I think is the main character of this book. He's been imprisoned, and he's from a holy order who's dedicated to defending the realm and the church and fighting against the vampires. And he's been put in prison for the murder of the vampire king, and he's telling the story of his life. This is a trilogy, I believe. Let me just double check that fact. Yeah, the third book came out this year, so I don't know whether there's going to be more or whether it's just going to be a trilogy. Everyone knows that I really need a new series to start because I hardly have any. Yeah, so that is another book that I just got on a 99p deal. So that's everything that I hold, apart from library books. I don't know what's going on with me in library books at the moment. 2 library books that I ordered came in this week. One is this one. Whoop, hold on. Trying to balance too many books. One is this one, which is called Ugly Boys Don't Cry by D.D. Armstrong. So the reason I ordered this book is because one of the squares for hrcyed is to read a classic and to read a modern day retelling, or just a retelling. And I read Of Mice and Men and absolutely loved it. And I just thought, well, I wonder if there's any retellings of that. And this came up, and this is a retelling, it says on the back, of Mice and Men. This is about Kyle and Sadiq, who are starting their first year of college in West London. Sadiq is an artist and has had a harrowing past. Kyle wants to be a rapper and businessman. It says college brings with it serious teenage social politics and a bully that terrorises their friend group. They're navigating friendships and love interests. Will they continue to fortify each other and help each other succeed, or will the newfound stresses in their lives pull them apart? So, yeah. I'm looking forward to that one. So that one was a order for that reason. The other one was a non-fiction book to help me personally. And this is called Burnout-Free Working, Your Expert Guide to Thriving in a Stressful Workplace. So I got this because I very much need to read this at the moment. And this book was recommended to me by a colleague, and it's the guy who, Dr. Richard Duggins, who wrote this, is kind of like he's a psychiatrist and he's an expert on burnout. So he's written this book, which looks very kind of practical and easy to read in digestible sections. And I asked the library if they'd buy a copy of this because they didn't have a copy, and they said yes, and they bought it. So that was lovely. I love it when you can do that. Just ask the library if they'll buy a book for you and they say yes. And then hopefully other people can then benefit from this book as well, not just me. So That's another book I got from the library. So that actually is all the books I've hauled this time. So just a quick rundown. I had to make a list of everything that I want to read. So in my bullet journal, I made a little spread. This is all the books that I need to read next. This is just like admin stuff, so nothing to do with it. My next read is going to be Bookishly Ever After by Lucy Powrie, because that's due back to the library in 3 days. And that's the third in the Paper and Heart Society series, which I'd highly recommend. Very bookish, lovely series by Lucy, who is a booktuber herself. Then I have the next one after that, I think, will be Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, another booktuber who has a fantastic channel. So they're the two main priorities at the moment. The two library books that I mentioned, plus All the Beauty in the World by Patrick Bringley, which is a non-fiction about his time working as a security guard, I think, a museum guard in the Met in New York. So that's been highly recommended. So that's those things. Then, as I mentioned, I also need to read Boudica's Daughter as my August new release for hrcyed. Then the only other things I have on here is my TBR spin books. So TBR spin I've mentioned enough times that I think people will know what it is. But the book that I got for the month of September, I haven't started yet, which is The Invention of Wings by Sue Monk Kidd. And I've had this book for ages, so it's a good time for me to read that one. And then for October, so by October you only have 3 books left on your stack. And if you have a prompt where you can't meet the prompt with the books left on your stack, which becomes more and more likely the less and less books you have, then you get to swap out one of them and swap another for another one. So the prompt for October was to read a book from your stack that was a gift or that a friend really wants you to read. So of the books I had left, none of them were a gift. So I decided I would make a little spinning wheel of all the books that were gifted to me, which there was quite a lot. I didn't realise I had so many. And then, as you can see, I decided to use it to decide what I was going to read next. And I'm just going to pull the book off my shelf once you've seen. So as you can see, I got My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, and this was gifted to me by my friend's mum, who sent it to me in the post out of the blue and just said, she wrote a little message inside saying, I found this very poignant and full of truth. Hope you enjoy reading it. So this one came up. Now, I've had this for a really long time. I hate the cover and it's always put me off. And it just, I think it recently won the New York Times list of the best fiction of the last century, or this, I can't remember what the actual title of it was, but it kind of highly acclaimed. And this would also fit in with Ben Reed's good reading prompt for October, which is to read a book with an ugly cover, because I think the cover is horrible for this book. And anyway, all I know is this is about Lila and Elena, who were childhood friends growing up in a tough part of Naples in the 1950s, and it's about their friendship. It's the start of a series yet again, but at least I'll be starting it. And yeah, this is highly acclaimed. Let me know if you've read it. I was a little bit like, ooh, when I got this one. There's other ones on there that I'd have rather got, but then this is either going to be like, I love this series and I carry on, or I don't like it and I unhaul. So yeah, either way, it'll be fine. That was such a long video. I need to do it weekly, not fortnightly, I think. But anyway, let me know if you've read any of those books. Leave me an emoji if you don't want to leave me a comment, but it's lovely to hear from anybody who wants to leave me a comment. And I hope that you have a really great reading week and week in general, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.